The bat signal has been lit. Go through the grandfather clock, secret entrance, and head back to the Batcave. It's time to revisit the Batman animated series with your hosts, Adam and Nick.
Welcome to another episode of Back to the Batcave, revisiting Batman, the animated series. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, Nick. Nick, how's it going?
Adam, I'm doing great. Always happy to be here, trying to stay afloat because we have a bunch of we're in cicada land at the moment, so happy to be here, distracting myself, talking some goodness with you.
Awesome. Good
Yeah,
to be the distraction,
yeah,
and Batman is always a fun distraction to be. Um,
always.
Given the title of the show, we are obviously going to be discussing Batman, the animated series, but we're adding a different wrinkle to the podcast this time around in that we are going to be, in the second half of the show, also reviewing Batman The Long Halloween, which is the classic 12-issue series from Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, which, of course, the late, great Tim Sale, by the way, which, of course, spawned a sequel in the form of Dark Victory, which we will eventually review, and then it was a spin-off, which was Catwoman When in Rome, also, which we will eventually review. We got lots of time, folks. Brave and the Bold and the Batman aren't coming out anytime soon, so we got to fill time, and so we will. So we're kicking things off with Batman: The Long Halloween, as we should, because that was the first one out of the gate. But before we get to the meat of the episode, as we often do, we cover news relating to the particular IP that we're discussing, and this episode's news actually pertains to Batman: The Long Halloween. So as I previously alluded to, Tim Sale unfortunately passed away a little bit ago, and in a sort of tribute, we are going to get a final installment in the Long Halloween saga. Apparently, before his passing, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale had worked on a treatment for a continuation, a final part of the saga, and so because they had that treatment, Jeff Loeb, through the urging of other creators, has finally agreed to finish that as a tribute to Tim Sale, and so that's I think very unexpected, and a welcome, I think, surprise, because I thought we were done out of necessity, obviously, with this universe. So I'm actually really glad that we're getting more. Before I reveal the sort of the creative team, so basically how it's going to work is there's going to be it's going to be 10 issues, 11 if you count. What they're doing is on the September 17th, they're re-releasing. Remember Batman: The Long Halloween the special that came out, I think it was last year. Well, they're repackaging that as an issue 0 for this story. So that's going to release on September 17th, and then September 24th, they're going to release issue 1 of this new tale. Now, as of right now, how it's going to work is there is going to be a different artist on each issue. Jeff Loeb indicated that the artists involved, which they've revealed the first 6, so I'll tell you those in a minute, but the artists involved are not being asked or required to imitate Tim Sale. These were just artists that were friends of Tim Sale, but also inspired Tim Sale. So they're going to do their own art style, but so it's not going to be like they're intentionally, copying Tim Sale. So before I really reveal the names, what's your thoughts on this idea of a third installment in the sort of like traditional Long Halloween saga, and as a tribute to Tim Sale, as a final farewell to Tim Sale?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, rest in peace, Tim Sale, of course. I know we've kind of done our tribute to him when we did our Long Halloween episode. But yeah, I think this is interesting. And the reason why I use the word interesting is because you had literally just said that, this isn't like a one-off offshoot, of the Long Halloween, right? It's like a whole 10-issue spanning story, right? And, we kind of always bring up the terminology of trying to milk the cow, because DC always tries to go to their greatest hit, so to speak, right? Oh, what's a comic that we know is going to make money? Well, we know Batman will make money, but what's a beloved comic that we know will get readers hooked and wanting to buy it? Well, the Long Halloween will probably do that.
Right.
That being said, I thoroughly enjoyed the special that they released last year. It came as a surprise to me, just how well it was written and developed it was, and just how much I enjoyed it. I mean, Sale and Loeb, my God, you can never really go wrong with those two. So,
right, exactly.
my first thoughts are I'm excited. This is the type of thing that would kind of get me into continuing with a monthly issue. Granted, it is 10 issues, but for 10 months I'll be reading it. And I'm just hoping that it's a labor of love, to be honest, which I'm assuming is what it is. Otherwise, why else do you really do that?
Yeah.
You don't want to ruin the legacy,
Yeah, no, I get the sentiment that you're saying. Sometimes, they do it because, you said, it's sort of going back to the cash cow, so to speak. But I think in this case, it's because it was Loeb bringing the idea to them.
Right.
Right? It's different. And if it was somebody that, totally different creator saying, listen, I've got an idea for a third part in the Long Halloween, and it was like 2 different creators that had nothing to do with Loeb and Zale, I'd be like, why? Like, what are you doing? So, but because it's Loeb and it is his way of being a tribute to his friend and collaborator, I think it's in the best possible hands. Speaking of the artists involved, I'll just run those down. So we've got. Oh, and by the way, the covers will be unused, unreleased Tim Sale art. So there will still be the Tim Sale presence in terms of the cover art, and it'll be new stuff from him. But so issue 1, the main artist is Eduardo Rizzo. Issue 2 will be Klaus Janson. Issue 3 will be Mark Chiarello. Issue 4 will be Cliff Chang. Issue 5 will be Bill Sienkiewicz, and then issue 6 will be Enrico Marini. All fantastic artists in their own right, and I can't wait to see how their style fits in with the Long Halloween era of Batman. And again, there's still 4 more artists to be named later. My guess is at San Diego Comic-Con. That's just my guess.
It's a good guess.
I'm no Nostradamus. Let's put it that way. But what about these? Anything about these names stick out to you, Nick?
It seems like a really solid lineup to me. I think the part that intrigues me is how you had mentioned that each issue is going to look distinctly different than the last. Like, or I guess like not each issue has to look the same more or less. So I think that's fascinating because you can do kind of this cool thing where each issue kind of represents Batman's kind of like psychology of how he's viewing things. Like, maybe the art in one issue is a little bit darker and maybe the next issue is a little bit brighter, or the colors pop out a little bit more. Maybe Batman's suit looks a little bit different. Maybe the villains look different. So I think that's definitely a fascinating, unique approach. I think to kind of take it to this kind of story because there's a lot I think you can do with it.
Agreed. So definitely looking forward to this. We will be covering it here on the network. We've got to do Dark Victory first, so we'll make sure we do that before September. But we're definitely going to cover it, so stay tuned and you'll have our thoughts. But before we can cover either The Last Halloween, which is this book, or Dark Victory, we have to cover The Long Halloween, which we will do after the break. And spoiler alert, we both may be wearing different t-shirts because it's not being recorded at the exact same time. Spoiler alert, behind the curtain, whatever you want to call it. So, and like, maybe by accident we are wearing the same shirt. That would be funny. I didn't even look, but it might be. Who knows?
Our conversation got so hot that we needed to change.
That's right.
And combine two different recordings.
No, the reason why I need to change is because I had all my multiverse wives are here, and so that's why things got a little dicey between the break. But anyway, on the other side of the break, we're going to be doing Long Halloween and Pretty Poison. So stay tuned for both of those. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
So we can get right into our episode of Batman the Animated Series, which is the second episode of season 2 as of the special rewatch order. Pretty Poison. So give us a little bit of a description and background on this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you kind of alluded to off the top, this episode is the introduction to Poison Ivy. And long story short is, we get a nice little introduction to, well, not me introduction, but Harvey Dent's in this episode. So Harvey Dent is actually poisoned in this episode, and it turns out that he wants to marry who is Poison Ivy in this episode, and it turns out Poison Ivy actually poisoned Harvey Dent, and we kind of get this nice little race against the clock for Batman to try to save the District Attorney of Gotham City, and of course the introduction to Poison Ivy.
The interesting thing, first of all, the actor who voiced Harvey Dent Two-Face sadly passed away recently.
Right, yeah. Richard Roundtree, I think.
Yeah, so the timing of this was not planned. Obviously, we didn't know that, but may he rest in peace. It seems like we're doing this a lot with Batman the Animated Series actors lately, and I'm not happy that we're doing this. So, universe, please stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about what I liked the way this started is that it started with a flashback, and it was in black and white, which I like that stylistic choice visually. The idea that why Pamela Isley / Poison Ivy is doing what she's doing is because she's out for revenge, because they are building a Gotham penitentiary over the area where this endangered plant rose which caused them to go extinct. So now 5 years after the flashback, like we see her dig up, one of these flowers so she can cultivate it and keep it going, privately in her own collection. And so once we make the jump from that in the flashback, we see her going on her revenge tour of everybody that was involved in the the spearheading of the building of Gotham Penitentiary. So I like her motivation made sense. It wasn't just save the plant life, just like straight out of like randomly, just for no reason. Like, which is, I mean, being conscious of nature and protecting nature is a great thing. But if I'm going to see somebody go on a revenge killing spree, I'd like it to be more than just you save the plants. You know what I mean? So I like the way they played that there. And then one thing before I let you give your thoughts on that part, when they transition from the flashback to the present day, and they say 5 years later, a much safer Gotham. My first thought was, really? Is it? Is it though?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, what were your thoughts on the sort of the introduction?
Yeah, because the thing, the flashback was a little bit weird too. I was like, 5 years later, Batman has a new suit by 5 years later in that timeline. Yeah, look, I think this further proves why Batman has the greatest rogues gallery in comic book medium, because I think the idea of there being this political environmentalist villain, that just wants to protect the environment and sees how the world is destroying the environment, I think is kind of a smart way to utilize a villain like that.
Yeah.
And it kind of, it does like add a little horror aspect to it as well. But yeah, no, I think it was a pretty smart way to go about it, like you said too. Obviously the cool part of Harvey Dent being involved, him being the one that wants to do it, is a cool way to kind of bring him into this Batman animated series world. Love seeing Bruce and Harvey Dent being friends too. That's
yeah.
That's a
That
cool
was great.
dynamic, So
like the first 5-10 minutes of the show was just them talking
right.
about his decision and his relationship, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I could watch this for the rest of the 18 or whatever minutes is left.
Yeah. So yeah, it was cool. I liked it. I like that aspect.
And it's funny when Harvey and Pamela were on the date, Bruce was late, and he's like, oh yeah, he's probably caught up with something at work, and they show Batman swinging after a villain and chasing down a villain, and then he's like, and then it transitions back to Harvey, and he's like, but Bruce still likes to get out and get his kicks, and it shows Batman kicking the crap out of said criminal. So I like the transition between the the two scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we see Pamela kiss Harvey with the poison lipstick and make her exit, and then Harvey faints and succumbs to the poison and is rushed to the hospital. Even the way it was, right, like when he's being rushed into the emergency and you're getting that point of view shot, I'm like, this is like something you'd see on, like, I don't know, ER or whatever.
Right.
Pick your poison of no pun intended of medical dramas, but that's the kind of shot you'd see. So like it was very prime time, for that, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, it was very well done.
And then of course you get the doctors can't diagnose it, right? Because they've never seen this type of poison before. So Bruce kind of takes the blood sample, and then him and Alfred in tandem kind of work together to sort of solve the issue. And he tracks the plant back to Pamela Isley. He knows all about her, that she's a Bond, her whole backstory. And again, just before we get on to the third act, I really love the emphasis on Batman doing the legwork
Yep.
to figure it out. You know what I mean?
It just puts a huge smile on my face every time I see it. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the best part of it is, so we get all the detective work, and then we get the third act of, you know, he's in, he tracks Pamela down to her penthouse or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
and her makeshift green room, and he's attacked by one of the giant plants. So you go from the detective side to now this big sprawling superhero fight where he's fighting giant plants and Pamela, who's dressed in her skimpy Poison Ivy outfit. And if I had an animated universe version of myself out there, Poison Ivy from Batman the Animated Series would be on the list. You knew it was coming.
Oh
Um,
man,
um,
Lord help you.
yeah, especially if it was the animated version
Yeah.
of me. But so the rights to the animated version to HBO or Max, a free subscription for me. Uh, and consultation if they ever do a Harley Quinn series, live action. I want to be on the set and
I'm sure you would.
so I can watch filming. Just as
Sure.
some sort of executive producer, or what's it called? Associate. What's the phrase of my dear friends in that fandom? The associate
Oh.
producer. Yeah, make me one of those. But anyway, so yeah, just like the balance that this show offers with, and it seems like it's almost every episode where we get a bit of Detective Batman and we get a bit of superhero Batman, and I gotta say, for the duration of that fight, I'm like, is this gonna be to be continued? Because it doesn't look like Batman's making out of this okay. So
Mm.
I wasn't 100% sure. It's been a while since I've seen this episode. But yeah, what did you think of all that? Like the balance between, Batman doing the detective work, figuring out the antidotes, and then the action stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it did kind of have like a Batman 66 sort of vibe to it, right? Like you said too, you get your detective work, then
Yeah,
you get your battle, then you get that little ongoing bit of, is Batman gonna make it out of this scenario? Because that stuff always intrigues me too.
yeah,
I just appreciate too that like you just set it up, is that now we continue to be at this point in the series where things get a little bit more fantastical each time, right? Like Batman's not just fighting street thugs on the
yeah,
street anymore, right? Now he's fighting, living organisms,
yeah,
that are trying to eat him alive. I mean, like, this is as fantastical as it gets with Batman. So, which we get more fantastical, which is how we do that in this series. Remains to be seen, and we'll
yeah,
cover that.
yeah,
But yeah, I like the progression, and I kind of like the resolution to it too. He does find his way out of it. He kind of just slices the plant.
yeah.
Poison Ivy goes nuts. The building goes out in flames, and Batman
But but
finds
even
the
though the
antidote.
way he bargains with her, right? Like,
Yeah,
all right, either if I go, so does this plant. So either
right.
you get your plant if you give me the antidote. So there's that.
Yep.
Whether Batman would have actually thrown away the plant, I don't know, because he probably needed it. If she said no, he probably would have
Hmm.
needed it to save Harvey anyway.
Right.
So I don't know if he would have actually done it. Um, but again, she ends up locked away in Arkham.
Hmm.
Harvey ends up, you know, um, on demand because he gets him the cure in time. And you get that line from Bruce basically telling Harvey, I don't think, Pamela's right for you, right? So
Yeah,
um,
that was great.
it's kind of like a wink at the, that reminded me like when George Reeves in the Adventures of Superman series at the end of every episode used to
Hmm.
wink at the camera at the audience, like where
Yeah.
when Lois would be like, I'll never understand, or she'll give Superman all the credit, and Clark she'd say, but you weren't there, to help or whatever. And then George Reeves would wink at the camera. It's kind of that kind of a
Yeah.
moment, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. But I thought this was a fantastic debut for Poison Ivy.
Hmm.
I really, you got enough of her motivations, her backstory, and then again, you got a great balance of detective work and superheroic action. And to your point, the way you said, it seems like as we go through this, we're escalating from street level to fantastical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way, in terms of the way this fan put this, watch order together. It was done on purpose to show that the escalation from street thugs to fantastical villains. So it was done very much on purpose. So yeah, I guess is there anything else you want to call out on the episode, or we can go ahead and rate it?
No, this is a good solid episode, like you said too. We're still in that introductory phase of learning about the villains and Batman taking them down. But then the cool part is obviously like from here, it's just more fun. Like the next encounter that Batman has with these villains is always more fun.
Yeah.
How I look at it. So yeah, no, this is a great episode. I love the VHS too that I as a kid I always kind of liked the cover of that too because I always collected all of these. I didn't watch it on VHS. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But I just kind of remember, like, as I always collected all these too, like the Poison Ivy one was always pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like.
So letter grade, what would you give it on a letter grade?
A letter grade, I would probably give this one like a solid B+. I liked it.
Yeah, it's a solid B+. I think there's nothing inherently wrong with it. There's I think the pacing is on point. I think everything everything is given the time it needs. To sort of bring the audience in with Poison Ivy and again a real kind of, I don't know if we've seen him I think we've seen him at this point, but this is more of an introduction to Harvey Dent.
Mm-hmm.
So it did a lot in its 22 or 23 minute runtime. But yeah, I mean, there's so many good episodes of this show that, I mean, it's like you could, I mean, if somebody said this episode was an A or an A minus, A+, I wouldn't argue with them because they're just this whole series is just that damn good. So you can't go wrong. But
it's only a good thing why there's a different top 10, why everybody has a different top 10. Yeah.
So I would agree with that B+ as well. But yeah, that brings an end to our review of the animated series episode. Join us next time for our next episode review. But we're going to take a quick break, and then after the break, we're going to discuss and review the classic graphic novel, Batman: The Long Halloween. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Right.
Nice. Got my nice Hawks tumbler here for you.
I saw that. That's a nice. Bedard's pretty good, man. He's
as I call him, that beautiful human being.
You just need about 2-3 other guys that can help him out. That's where it's bare right now. But a couple more years of good drafting, I think you'll be.
Yeah, I mean, like the good thing that I love about the team is like they play hard. Or
they work hard. I mean, they're not going to win every night, but the result, the effort is there.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, like I said, even if they finish bottom 5 again this year and hypothetically next year, that's going to get you 2 more top tier players.
Yeah,
and that's really all you need to really sort of get back to near the top of the pile, right? So but yeah, the effort's there, or it could. I mean, hey, they could make a trade along the way.
Yeah, never know.
Who knows? But I think they, just knowing Chicago's history, I think they're going to want to do it through the draft.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
I guess because if people are calling for a trade, I mean, they're going to want your young guys, right? So they're not going to say, "Hey, here, give us Corey Perry, and we'll give you a young prospect."
Yeah,
I mean, Corey Perry is borderline 40 now, right? They're not going to, they're not going to knock on your door and say, "Here's a top tier
Here's
prospect."
Corey Perry from Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I mean, I would never do that. But I think our GM would have to be drunk to do that. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's going to happen through drafting. But
Yeah.
from what I've seen, their effort is there, and he's going to be the cornerstone. So
Yeah.
uh, uh, so it's a good. He's definitely the one to build off of. So
Great.
yeah,
That's great.
it looks pretty cool. But yeah, all right. So
Cool.
let's get into it with Batman the Animated Series in 3, 2, 1. And we're back, and as promised, we are talking one of the. Anyone could argue it's one of the best Batman stories ever told, and that is Batman: The Long Halloween, written by. Oh, you got the absolute. That's not the absolute edition, is it?
It's just a graphic novel.
It's graphic novel, yeah. I think that's the one I have as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have the older cover. I'm not sure. I might have the older edition, but yeah, Batman: The Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. They were frequent collaborators, both at DC and at Marvel. And it seemed like every time these two guys got together and put something out, it was top tier quality. No matter which side of the publishing street you were on. Just with my own personal history with this book, let's start there. When I got back into reading comics in about 2002, 2003, I want to say that this was probably in terms of graphic novels, I want to say it's the third one I read, because I remember being given Dark Knight Returns first, which is an odd way to do it just because of what kind of storyline that is. But my comic book guy at the time knew that a story that featured Batman and Superman in that kind of setting would hook me. And sure enough, he was right. And then I believe the second one that I got was Year One.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went back, I asked him. I said, "Okay, well, if I read the hypothetical end of the story first, and then I went back to Year One, do you have something close or shortly following Year One?" And that's when he sold me a copy of Long Halloween, and that was just before I read this, just shortly before Hush was coming out. So, which was good, because then I was all in on Hush, which we'll cover at a later date. But that's and I remember reading it. I think the first time I read it, I purposely tried to read a chapter a month to go along with the holiday that was in the story. But that's my history with reading the book. What about yours?
Yeah, so I kind of like you. I didn't start off reading The Long Halloween initially. It's obviously a story that I kind of read throughout the years of my developed comic book reading. What's fascinating is I always preferred Dark Victory over The Long Halloween, and in a way, I almost still do. But this is a fantastic, just Batman story, and it's interesting to always find kind of inspirations, from this book into other movies. I mean,
Yeah.
there's bits that were from retreaded into the Batman, and you watch something like The Dark Knight, and there's stuff that's just straight out of that one as well. I mean, Christopher Nolan literally has a quote on his book that says, "The Long Halloween is more than a comic book; it's an epic tragedy." So I mean, it just goes to show how much Christopher Nolan adored this book too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love the world setting. I love all the the way that the story is told through the different dates of the year. Obviously, 12 chapters, 12 months of the year, so that makes all the sense in the world. There's a holiday to go for everyone. But yeah, no, like I said, it's definitely quintessential Batman. It just wasn't always my favorite Batman story, but I definitely understand the hype and everything like that surrounding this book, because it definitely deserves it, in my opinion.
What I find interesting upon yet another read through of this book, which I've done several times,
Mm-hmm.
so much so that I bought the digital edition just so I wouldn't have to keep going through my long box and grabbing it.
Sure.
So I've double dipped, both physically and digitally, as I often do with Batman media. So there's a pattern there. But given that Jeff Loeb would, again, after the Long Halloween and Dark Victory, return to Batman with Hush, looking at Long Halloween, it's very much, if Jeff Loeb was going to do two runs on Batman, one being Detective Comics, the other being Batman, which he did, the Batman Monthly. That's Hush, was 12 issues of the Batman Monthly. Well, the Long Halloween would be the Detective Comics run because it is more rooted in crime, drama, detective storytelling than it is superheroics. That's not to say that there isn't action in here. There is, but this is sort of this book is really much like our watch through of Batman animated series. This book is slowly chronicling the transition from mob bosses running the show from the criminal side of things in Gotham to the freaks and the crazies. It's very much that transitional period. So the supervillains are parsed in right into this story. Some of them are used by the Falcones and the Maronis for their nefarious purposes. Others want to just disrupt the established order. I bet you know which one that is. And so it really is, but it's more rooted, I think, in the detective aspect of Batman with sprinkles of the superhero Batman. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think there's always been something fascinating about the underworld of Gotham City. Like the street level nature of Batman to me has always been something that I've admired. Especially with the way that Gotham City's been presented. It is just dark, gloomy, godforsaken place that's just filled of rich, self-centered rich people, mob bosses, things like that. And the way that I think I approach your story is, think of it's like The Godfather, but with superheroics, right? Like it's a little bit more like Godfather, except the Batman's in it, right? Because I mean, essentially you have a mob boss who's everybody's out to kill, and then here's Batman thrown in to try to solve the mystery, and then you kind of develop that there's more to this plot than even Batman knew about.
And the beauty of it is, I don't think at one point of the book, of the storytelling, did I figure out who Holiday was. Like never halfway through was I like, aha, it's this person, like I was always like, when certain characters would mention, like at one point, Gordon and Batman discuss it potentially being Alberto, potentially being Harvey, potentially being Gilda, and at every point I was like, yeah, I could see that, and then it would swerve and do the and twist things. So I was never able to nail down, and with the way it ends, you're still left wondering, well, who really? Because you could make a case for the ending that it could have been, like all three of them could have been in on the act.
Yep.
At different times, depending on who was being shot or killed. So, like it's ambiguous enough that if you want to see it a certain way, you can. Is that fair to say? Do you prescribe by that too?
Yeah, no, I think and this is like a testament to the writing, honestly. It's like they do the smart thing of like, whenever one of like Falcone's kids were being introduced, they kind of like, you feel like this animosity like through the pages, right? Like
yeah.
I don't think Alberto really likes his dad, or here's Sophia that just comes out of nowhere, and it's like she kind of has this little hatred towards her dad, right? Like obviously, like the wife is like fed up with Carmine.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's like they do the smart thing where it's like everybody has this motive to want to take out Carmine Falcone. So it's just kind of like it's a guessing game. And it's like
Yeah.
this Sherlock Holmes thing that keeps developing. I kind of dug it.
And you could make a case for all of them because Alberto, like his father, always dismissed him. Like, we're
Right.
talking business. This isn't for you. Like, you go mingle and do whatever, right? And then with Sophia, she always felt like, I guess, left out and sort of in her own way. Like,
She always wanted to do more.
She was in there, but it's like she was limited because her father wouldn't give her the reins, kind of thing, right?
Daddy's princess. Yep.
Like he even says at one point to, I think it was to Alberto, if anything happens to me, go to your aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She'll take care of things, right? So there's already a succession there. They even put the suspicion on his sister, the aunt, and and it's like, well, because the first killing is her son, which is the nephew, and when Harvey, at that point, Harvey, Batman, and Gordon are discussing it, and it's like, I mean, you're thinking as a reader, I'm like, I mean, that'd be pretty harsh, but I could see her killing her own son for to accomplish something. I mean, we're talking about the mafia world. It isn't the most sane or roast marshmallows by a fire and sing kumbaya with each other. That's not what they do, right? So it's all believable, and like to the point where even Harvey, you see the little things of like, there's certain things he said about they should take out, when he's talking about. There's one quote where it's like, Holiday's doing our job for us at one point. And Jim and Batman are like, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? So like, it sows the seed of, could it be Harvey? And you see him in the basement, right? And his wife is always occasionally going, what are you doing down there? And he's got the same caliber gun, the 22 caliber. So it's like, they stack, Jeff Loeb stacks up the deck of, it really could be any of them.
Yeah, no, to me, I still think, much like in The Dark Knight, Harvey Dent was always the most interesting character. I feel like in this book, Harvey Dent is the most interesting character because it's why the parallels between The Long Halloween and The Dark Knight, I think, are like,
and it's such a slow
unimaginable,
burn to get
right?
him,
Like
to
it's
get him
like
to Two-Face, right?
you have like this slow burn of this guy who is a district attorney that's trying to do right in Gotham. He's like the new golden boy of Gotham City, and his slow, methodical turn to the dark side is really illustrated in this book too, right? Like where he's constantly being pushed to his limit, and then you get the classic stuff of the Joker's being thrown in the mix too, right?
Which
So
we'll
all
get
that
to,
stuff,
yeah.
like all that stuff of like, how the Joker turns Harvey Dent corrupt eventually, still is there. So I just dug it that even like that iconic scene of them on the rooftop where they agree to all kind of do right by Gotham City, and then each of them slowly starts to fade away by that. I think that's what's interesting.
And there's a point where, because there's a point in the book where at first all the killings are happening to Falcone's family. So you're like, okay, clearly this Maroni or somebody he's hired is doing this. But then when some of the killings start hitting Maroni's side of things, it's like, wait a second. Like, again, that throws you off too, as to who would be. Because correct me if I'm wrong, is it Falcone's sister or daughter that's involved with Maroni? There's that scene at the jail. I can't remember. There's the reveal that there's an involvement there.
Might have been Sophia. I think it's Sophia.
Okay, yeah, okay. So you're like, yeah. So then you start shifting. Could it be Sophia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like,
Because she's playing both sides.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the gun is small, so it fits the hand of a woman and the whole. So you
Yeah.
start thinking, okay, who is? So they do a really good job of sending you as a reader through the ringer of like, I have no idea who the culprit is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I love the way the supervillains in the Rogues Gallery are you like. I say that even though Joker is there's nothing super about him, but physically,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love how they're all used. So like the Riddler is brought in by Falcone to figure out tell me who Holiday is, uh, um, and then Poison Ivy's brought in to coerce Bruce Wayne into because he has voting power at the bank to allow uh, Falcone and his businesses to work with the bank. So
Mm-hmm.
he brings her in to coerce Bruce Wayne. I just love the way those characters are used. Poor Solomon Grundy is just caught in the middle. The poor SOB is just minding his own business in the sewer and has to fight Batman because just.
Yeah. He brings him dinner.
But I do like that softer side of Batman. It's like I have no quarrel with you, but I just have to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but I have to punch you in the face, right? I like that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then, um, like you said, he brings him turkey at the end of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
He spends Thanksgiving with him. I like that. Because Solomon Grundy, he's technically a villain, but
Yeah.
you feel bad for the guy, right? It's a good important.
All right. Just
You
minding his own
you
business.
got one of the shittiest lots in life, buddy, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah.
But there's those two chapters when the Joker comes in, and it's just absolute chaos. Like 1 minute he's pulling a Grinch routine, stealing Christmas stuff like gifts and trees and next thing you know, he's planning to bomb I guess Gotham Square, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Times Square for Gotham City is what he's gonna right.
Right.
And all because his reasoning is I'm pissed off because Holiday is stealing all my thunder and Batman's attention.
Hmm.
And actually, like when Batman fights the Joker, it was the most action-packed superheroic scenario in the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see Tinsel's version of the Batmobile. At one point, they're fighting on top of a helicopter, which gave me Batman Forever vibes. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that
oh,
was
that's
so
kind of
cool.
very cool, right? So, and Joker in that pilot outfit, right? With that,
Yeah.
it's amazing McFarlane hasn't made a toy of that yet. But
I know.
now that I gave him the idea, maybe he will. Um, so I like the way they're all brought in, and then. But I think the best part of the dynamic is the Batman Selina / Catwoman
Mm.
dynamic in terms of Batman with his other rogues. I think that's the perfect kind of um, push and pull
Mm-hmm.
between Bruce and Selina, Batman, Catwoman that you can get in a book. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, the whole chase me kind of element to that I thought was pretty well done. Where it's like Batman constantly runs into Catwoman, and he kind of makes that ongoing thing of like, how come you're always around when Falcone is around? Like, how come I always see
Yeah,
you right when Falcone is there? So like, and like again, all that stuff is ripped. Has the inspiration to the Batman kind of
yeah,
all over that too. There's even that panel where she's breaking into the safe or whatever, and Batman stops her. I mean, gee,
yeah,
I wonder
yeah,
what recent movie we saw that in, right? So
yeah,
like
yeah,
just classic. Yeah, I mean like I think she's drawn like perfectly too. Like I dug her outfit, like
yeah.
everything like that. It kind of blends even. with the way that Batman is drawn, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up her design because I wanted to take a second to talk about some of the design. I have a I have a positive, negative reaction to some of the design. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
this is no disrespect to Tim Sale because no matter what I say that may sound negative, he's a master at his craft, and all of these comic artists, if I criticize their art, can draw better than I ever will be able to anyway. So there's that, prefacing that. When Tim Sale draws a superhero or a supervillain, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The only character that I thought was off from a supervillain point of view was Poison Ivy. His take on Poison Ivy was not my favorite at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but his Batman, like there's some splash page shots of Batman where he looks towering, imposing,
Mm-hmm.
like beast mode. Like there's like it's like if you could find the perfect balance of Bale and Affleck,
Mm-hmm.
I think Sale could find it, right? In
Yeah.
that aspect of it, right? Um, his Joker, I mean, that smile is creepy as all get out with the Joker, and it's a very classic archetype of Joker that I
Yeah.
like.
It has like
Right?
that Chuck Dixon kind of vibe to it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also his Two-Face. When we finally get to that, man, that's some creepy, grotesque looking
Yeah.
stuff. Um, the other issue I had with his art was his Bruce Wayne looks kind of off. Like he's almost out of costume. He's too big. Like he's too, you know what I mean? And the slick, the fully slicked back hairstyle, like the facial detail. It's not like I've seen. See, the problem is when you see guys like after reading this and you see the Jim Lee and the Michael Turners of the world draw Bruce Wayne, right? It kind of like that bulky, dude outside of a costume. It works for Clark Kent because he's a farm boy, so you can have him.
Yeah.
But for Bruce Wayne, it's like I don't know. It looks kind of off to me.
You can tell they were going for like that cartoony aspect, which is okay, but I agree with you.
Jim Gordon looked perfect because I mean, I've never seen an artist screw up Jim Gordon.
It's kind of hard to mess up Jim Gordon.
Like if you mess up Jim Gordon, maybe comic book artist is not your field of choice.
I mean, like, how could you really mess him up? Not give him a mustache? I mean,
like really, like where we're going here. Like, I'll just screw that up. So, but so that's my like the art is so good. It's just there's certain things that I love about it, and then there's other things that are not my cup of tea. So that's just where I am. Mm-hmm. Do you have any things like that where it's where there's positives and negatives? Like,
I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like I think this book is drawn like, chef's kiss. Like, to the most part. Like I don't really have any issues like overall like with the way everything was drawn. It might take a little bit to get used to, like with your eyes and everything like that. Just because like it is a certain type of like palate cleanser to like read this book for as like all 12 issues, whatnot. I think most of the villains are drawn pretty well too. Like I kind of went back and forth. I might be with you. Like I think Poison Ivy might be the one that I think maybe I would have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
The Riddler I think maybe could have, here and there, but I think Matt Hatter looks perfect. I think Scarecrow looks awesome.
Scarecrow was so brief, but it was great. Like I mean, we should have read Haunted Night before that, but anyway, because that's more Scarecrow. Yeah. But when he shows up on that horse, which again was used in Batman Begins, hello,
it's classic.
It's so great. It's like, like that's like I still want that look of Scarecrow. Like, I'm talking about the full-fledged look. I'm not just talking about the scene on the horse. I'm talking about with the hat, the whole
like the actual Scarecrow.
I want that in a movie because that would be. I mean, that'd be creepy.
Yeah,
it would be creepy.
I think you can get away with something like that now too. I think.
Even in the Reeves verse, I think you can pull that off because a serial killer could do that, right?
Yeah.
But so Yeah, there's just things. Again, I don't dislike Tim Sale's art. There's just things that worked and some things that didn't for me.
I still wish he would have. And I don't know if Loeb Cell could have pulled this off, but the only thing that I was like really itching for is like if Batman had like an oval instead of like the classic bat, which is okay because I think the bat kind of does symbolize
Yeah,
more
the oval would have been something, especially
but
with
yeah,
that.
that'd have been like
You know why? Because now that you mentioned the animations, like the cartoon style, it
yeah,
kind of works if you're coming in the mindset of Batman the Animated Series. If you think about it like that,
I know.
and then you're like, man, the oval would look really good here. Like
It's like
right?
it's like the only thing.
But yeah, listen,
Yeah.
the Black Bat works much better in Long Halloween than it does in either of the Dark Knight or the Dark Knight Rises because it's practically barely visible in
Yeah.
those two movies. So
I
there
know.
it is. I'll give you that. And I love those two movies. So anybody
Yeah.
throwing their fist on the table and oh, how could you say anything negative? Well, there it is.
Adam hates Batman.
Adam hates the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises. No, I never said that at all. Just costume choices. You know what else works with Harvey Dent in this book is that you grow to care about him throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when he is, you know, wounded or scarred, and again, it's Maroni, but it all goes back to, it's all precipitated by, like, Maroni just didn't do it just because, hey, let me take out let me make a statement by taking out an official. It was Maroni. It was Maroni.
Yeah, it was
the
Maroni.
order. The order. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that the acid would be there.
Yeah.
But he did it because he was being pressured to give up Falcone, and he didn't. So it all has every action and reaction in this book. There's a purpose and there's purpose and consequence with everything that happens, and it's taking that time and sort of you watch Harvey degenerate from this upstanding district attorney to this criminal, and you watch it over the months. And I think that, especially through Gordon and Dent, you really see the toll that living in Gotham City and dealing with the stuff they deal with has on people.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that about this book.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your, before we wrap up, I want to get to like what you thought the coolest hit scene was that you saw. Yeah, 'cause since we're talking about a mafia book, you have to kind of do that. But so with the reveal of who Holiday is,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of leave it still ambiguous depending on how you interpret it.
Uh-huh.
So how do you interpret it? Who do you think? Well, do you think it was one guy or one person the whole time? Or do you think multiple people had a hand at different times? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of like the tricky part of leaving something like open ended like that, because it can kind of be like Scream, like a take on Scream, where it's like maybe it's technically one person, but it's two, like that sort of thing. I think the more that they kept giving me like these twists and turns, were like I kind of think the idea of it just being inside the Falcone family, like it was just his family just trying to take out their dad because they felt like their dad didn't care about him, like that sort of thing. Like that kind of works too. And then you have the idea of, Gilda, the wife that doesn't feel appreciated. She figures by taking out crime that'll give more time with their husband. So like that kind of like makes sense too.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just have like any one of like Falcone's kids just wanting to take
Like I
Vi's
don't think
power.
I dismiss the idea that it was Harvey.
I don't think
Right?
it was Harvey either.
I think it's either because in the animated movie, they pretty much make it out that it was Gilda.
Yeah.
Right.
It does. Yeah, it was.
if I remember correctly.
They wanted you to think it was Sophia, but then it was really Gilda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas here,
So that part stayed the same.
it seems more like it was Alberto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then if Gilda did anything, it was just a copycat kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is how I kind of took it.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
I would agree with that.
but then I, to be fair, I haven't read that one-shot special that came years later of set in the Long Halloween world. So I don't know if that
the sequel. Yeah.
I don't know if that clarifies anything. I have to get that and read that.
I don't think it did.
Yeah. So
Good though.
but that's how I take it. So you think it's straight up Alberto or where? Okay, and so
I think it was all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So that's where I'm going to go with that. And then if you had to pick like a favorite, I'll get you to pick two things. So the favorite murder, like your favorite murder scene,
Oh.
or and then your favorite page featuring Batman.
Ooh. Favorite page featuring Batman. I think for me, it's still got to be the rooftop scene, the introduction where he just appears for the first time to Gordon and Dent.
With the three of them, yeah.
With the three of them, that's classic. And he's kind of like in the shadows, and like he kind of just comes out of nowhere because that's like a classic Batman page there. Favorite hits. I think probably the boat one, the one when they're on the boat and kind of like Alberto gets popped, I guess.
That's mine too, because it's in the bathtub and it's like it's the most classic, like it's the quintessential mafia murder, and
it's like almost like it has like Titanic vibes to it a little bit too.
Yeah, the other one, the second, the runner up for me would be the bar hit. Remember the bar one?
Yeah,
because that's another classic, right? Like that's right out of The Godfather. God damn it! It's like and I think isn't there a mention of cannoli in this book too? I think at some point, it's cannolis. Yeah,
the cannoli with
it. I will say before I give you my favorite Batman image.
Yeah.
I was laughing every time one of the Falcone family said the word Strones or a variation of Stronzo, because I use it all the time on Twitter. So every time I read it, I was dying.
You were probably like, "Give me my compensation."
Yeah, where's my cut? Where's my fee?
Cut?
I'm gonna go on strike like the SAG now.
This term alive.
I'm gonna go on strike like the SAG and I want my cut. So yeah, I had a good laugh there every time I saw that. It was only 2 or 3 times, but I was laughing. Maybe that's why I like this book so much, just because there's so much Italian in there that it speaks. And then for my favorite image of Batman, it has to be after he's beaten the Joker.
I was gonna say that was.
I think it's like the bell tower or whatever, and he's holding the beaten Joker like by the coat or whatever, the jacket. And he's just standing there so heroically. I like that one. The other one, the runner-up, would be him looking at Catwoman like she's sprawled out over the signal. And I'm telling you, if I was Batman and Catwoman was over there like that, nothing would get done in Gotham City. I just want to point that out. So you can all be thankful that I'm not Batman. I just want to point that out. But yeah, it has to be the Batman Joker. Because it's so iconic, and that rivalry, that duel, the friction between them is just it's. I think in comics, it's probably. I mean, there's a top 3 for me in terms of hero versus villain. It's sort of dynamic, and to me that's number 1. Is Batman and Joker. So anytime I see that kind of thing, it just sparks something in me. So yeah, that's my. Is there anything else you want to mention that we missed that you think we should?
Like obviously, like the tie-ins of, like in the beginning of the book of like when we find out that the reason why Falcone is so, I wouldn't say like interested in Bruce Wayne's help, is because he feels like
He owes him.
The Waynes owe him, like not just like So I think that was interesting to set up because obviously, again, like the Batman teed up is that obviously this is where this has come from is that Falcone was shot and Thomas Wayne actually stitched him back together because he
on
obviously
the
couldn't
on
go
the
to a
dinner
hospital
table. Yeah, and
on
Bruce
the
was
dinner
watching
table, and Bruce Wayne saw it the whole time. So many years later, Falcone is like, you're still indebted to me. So I thought that whole thing was kind of cool too, because like he obviously felt like Bruce Wayne owed him.
What's funny about that is I remember when I was watching the Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And Falcone was saying that. I did the whole I did in the theater. I was like, and was that the screening that I took my mom to? I think it was. And she's like, why are you getting so excited? And then I and I explained to her what that was from. And so, but yeah, so that's pretty crucial and quintessential. And yeah, I like that little touch. And then again, seeing it in the Batman was pretty cool. But yeah, so I guess if that's all we need to mention, then I mean, let's go ahead and rate it. We'll do 5 out of 5 batarangs for story and art. So go ahead and give us your rating.
Yeah, for let's see, story. I give this about like a 4.5 out of 5, and then art. I don't really have an issue with the art, so I'll give the art a 5. To be honest with you, I think this is a highly readable story. I mean, especially it is very dialogue heavy too, which that's Logan Sale. But I mean, like it's drawn exquisitely. The story is interesting. You said it. I know we were talking privately too. I'm never really bored reading this story. Like if I ever want to pick it up and just read it, like there's so many cool things to like pinpoint, especially if you're a Batman fanatic. Like I said, like you can look at stuff like the Dark Knight and the Batman Forever. Like there's little things here and there that were literally plucked out from the story. So it is quintessential Batman. So yeah.
For me, it's going to be 4.5 batarangs for the story, and then also 4.5 batarangs for the art, given what I mentioned previously. But the beauty of it is, like you were just saying, Nick, is that I've read this. Yeah, I've lost count over the years, over the 20 years I've been back in comics since the first time I read this. How many times I read this? It's a minimum of 5 in 20 years minimum. It's probably more, but just to seem normal, I'll say a minimum of 5. And every time I'm never bored, and I'm always thinking of who actually is, like I'm always trying. Is this person actually Holiday, or is it this? So the fact that you're always wondering, always questioning, is just the tale of a good mystery, and it's the influence of this book has shown up in so many Batman adaptations that it's undeniable. So it deserves all the praise that it gets as a Batman classic, and I envision myself revisiting this story for many years to come.
Great.
So with that, I think we can bring this episode to a close.
Yeah. Perfect time to read it on Halloween too, if you haven't checked it out.
If you
fits the food perfectly.
If you want to stretch it out over a full year, you could do. I did that way back when. You could do that too. Good luck trying to put it down after a chapter. I couldn't do it.
I know.
Especially on my last reread, I read it in 2 days, and I listened to the 2 Danny Elfman soundtracks as background music, and I know this has more in common with the Batman and the Dark Knight trilogy, but let me tell you, the Danny Elfman Batman scores work just as good. I'll tell you that right now. While reading this book, so if you haven't tried that, I recommend that as well. But if you want to talk more Batman with Nick or I on social media before we come back to Batman down the line, you can. So Nick, where do they find you on social media?
Yeah, thank you again, brother Adam. Appreciate it. I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Nick Zennick, and I would also like you guys to follow the show that I co-host, which is Vigilante 1939, where we have just celebrated our 200th episode. And especially with this actor strike now being lifted, I mean, God willing, as of this recording, it seems like all signs are pointing to that. We'll definitely got more exciting things to come. So, yeah, Vigilante 1939 and Nick Zennick on Twitter and everywhere else. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Yeah, 200 is quite a number. So congratulations. And
Thank you.
I've made a couple of appearances on that show. Always had a good time when I was there. The
Yeah.
boys do a good job, and
Thank you.
maybe we'll do one of those now that if the movies start, reinvigorating and being made again. We'll do some of those. What's it called? Tailgates, and I'll come
Tailgate
on
parties.
again.
Oh
I'll
yeah.
come on again for one of those tailgates, and we'll have some fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Those are fun.
but yeah, so definitely check that out. The boys do a great job over there. And if you want to find me, it's at Adam_Leafs fan on Twitter or whatever it's called this week. We also have a Facebook page for the podcast network, which will be listed in the description below. Click that, and we can continue the conversation there if you so choose. But until next time, remember that Batman is forever. From the first time he meets Poison Ivy in animated form to the last. So long, everybody.